I'm looking through my past journals and writings, and one of the great things about keeping a journal is being able to reflect upon it as time passes and to see how much you've grown. I think oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough credit as we're walking down the spiritual path at the amount of growth and how far we've come. Why? Because it happens in small, seemingly insignificant steps. It's a drip by drip, inch by inch, instead of this huge transformation which happens overnight. Which is why it's much more important to be consistent than to be this comet that burns through the night and then fizzles out. In reading my past writings, I realized, man, I was a pretty intense guy, and I think a lot of this people go through that, especially when we're in our younger years, um, teenage years or 20s. We get really fired up about causes. We get fired up about ideologies, about we've discovered the truth, and it's our mission to share it with the world, and um, get caught up in groupthink and a little bit of smugness and a lot of ego tied in there, even if we're in supposedly circles or pursuing paths that are supposed to not focus on the ego. That's one of the most dangerous things is we tend to let our guard down. I know about the ego. I read Eckhart Tolle. I'm wise to it. And then we let our guard down, and then the ego just slips in and kind of runs and takes over our life on a subconscious, almost subliminal level that we're not aware of. And but one of the things too that in looking back on the writings is that, man, I am appreciative of where I was and where I am now, and then I realized that probably it'd be helpful to other people. To one of the reasons I make these videos is to share some of my pitfalls and some major mistakes that I've made. And one of the big ones was not as being. I have a pretty passionate personality, at times can be intense, and saw things black or white. And I think as we mature spiritually, we tend to come to the middle way, or as Buddhists call it, the middle path, and to adopt a more gray approach in our political beliefs and our spiritual beliefs and just the way we live our lives. And there's that self righteousness that you see so much on YouTube or whatever, anybody who's passionate about anything, tends to not predominate. We don't exude that energy. I was just watching an interview on Bill Maher with Sean Penn, and I've met Sean Penn, and I just admire the work he's doing, but I think he turns people off and they tune him out because he has this holier than thou, self righteous um, attitude, and a little bit of wackiness, with Hugo Chavez and going to Iraq, and which isolates people. And what we want to do is, it's when we become, if whatever you want to call it, awakened, enlightened, we tend to castigate those that are asleep and those that are drones and those that are stuck in the matrix and they'll never get it, and they're superficial and they all talk about nothing, and they with their big houses, their cars, and watching television. And we tend to be so critical and judgmental of people that not too long ago we were walking in their shoes. We were living the same lives. And who's to say our life is better than their life and our walk is better? It's better for us. But the holier than thou that I saw in my writings and as I was becoming more spiritually aware is now very revealing to me, because I realized that it shut a lot of people out, and it really enforced my ego, and I think real and weakened me and kind of stunted my spiritual growth. Where in life, it's all about having a balance. And I could listen to two political arguments and I can understand both sides. There's valid points on both sides of the view. And I think that's a sign of when you know that you're not latching onto an ideology and that you're more living from within or an inner guidance on common sense, being led by common sense and reason and rational thought and intuition, and it's not this hot and cold emotional reaction to people, things, situations, and what's happening in the world. There's a coolness, a calmness that permeates what your interactions, your beliefs, and your energy level. And it's a liberating experience to surrender that we'll never have all the answers. At this point in my life, yes, I think what I believe and how I live is the right way. But who knows? I'm reading what I wrote 10 years, 5, 10, 15 years ago. I might be wrong. And I'm always still evolving. And just to take a more humble approach that our way or my way is not the right way and they're all crap, and just surrender and let go of that for our own benefit, and also to it embraces others to be more open to our ideas, to our thoughts, and to our belief systems. It's just so ironic that the very thing that we oppose, we end up becoming. we oppose the rampant materialism, the whole conformist, mentality of the masses, and then we become conformist, we become judgmental, and I don't know. It's nice to see that. I have a long way to go, but it's nice to see that I've been able to let a lot of that go, and I see now less of the rants. When I first started, awakening, or whatever you want to call it, becoming aware, I was, I was a ranter. And you read YouTube comments or you watch YouTube videos, and you see they're just filled with ranters. This is wrong. This person's crap, and blah blah. And I always admire people that are proactive and calm, cool, collective, and say, okay, here's the problem, how can we solve it? And sometimes I've come to the conclusion that there are problems in the world that just can't be solved, that will never be solved. And coming to an acceptance and make peace with that, instead of always banging your head against the wall and fighting what is. It all really comes down to is just acceptance, surrender, lowering your expectations, being at peace with yourself and others, not needing to change everything about the world or about yourself, and just being really realistic instead of idealistic. It's like carrying, I look back in my past writings and it looks like I feel like I was carrying rocks or burdens that would follow me wherever I go. And it's nice to be able to set those boulders down and just walk light, free, more accepting about myself and others, and just going with the flow of life instead of constantly resisting it. Again, it just comes down to surrender. Thanks again for listening, and love your comments. Bye-bye.